Okay, forgive me. Good evening. Welcome to our meetings this evening. At this time, we're going to adjourn to an executive session. And I apologize, I don't see the protocol here. I know we're going to be discussing qualifications of a potential employee as well as potential litigation that the district could be subject to. Is that correct?
I think it's review the performance of a public employee. Yes.
Review the performance of a public employee?
Yeah, I'm looking at the protocol. This meeting is recessed for an executive session to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
All right. As soon as the room is open. And this will be for approximately an hour and 15 minutes. Good evening. It is 7:30 and we are going to begin our special meeting. We did adjourn from our executive session at 6:55. I apologize, we neglected to come back and adjourn officially. So we did adjourn from the executive session again at 6:55. All right, so at this time, I'm going to call our special meeting to order and welcome. This is a meeting of the Kent School Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is to approve a discussion and approval agenda and a consent agenda. Interim Superintendent Vela, are there any changes to the agenda at this time? Let's see here. Oh, doesn't look like he's here. Oh, is he? Okay.
President Daniels, this is Mrs. Antello. Interim Superintendent Vela is having connection issues. So
Okay, we can wait.
Please give us a moment. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. In the meantime, I do also wish to mention that I neglected to excuse Director Benno for last week's meeting. So I apologize for that, and that will be reflected in the minutes.
So Interim Superintendent Vela is here.
Yes, he's trying to log on. He's having connection issues.
I apologize. I think I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you good? Okay. So I was just asking if there were any changes to the agenda.
Yes, President Daniels, yes, supplemental personnel report has been added to the consent agenda as item 3.02.
Thank you. I'll need a board member to make a motion to add the agenda item.
I move that we add the supplemental personnel report as to the consent agenda as item 3.02.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of adding agenda item 3.02 as a supplemental personnel report, please indicate by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed indicate by raising your right hand and saying no. Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, so we are on to agenda item 2.0, our items for discussion and approval. Is there a motion to approve agenda item 2.01?
I move that we approve agenda item 2.1.
A second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Um,
Thinking everyone's had the opportunity to review the job posting.
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
It appears that it has all, quite the basics that we need. I'm excited to get this posted.
Yeah. It just, we don't have a time frame, so I think that's mostly what we need to discuss.
So typically, typically how long, I was thinking, I've heard 7 days, 10 days. Typically, how long would this posting be open? Dr. Behringer, could you assist?
Yes, President Daniels, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Vela. Yes, typically 7 days is our minimum posting. If you'd like it out there for longer than 7 days, you can definitely put it out there, but 7 days is our minimum post.
Okay.
I have some proposed timelines. I don't know if we want to discuss timelines. So I have down end of August or the 1st that the position would close. That would give us 2 full weeks if it were posted tomorrow. And then I have on the 6th is a holiday, Labor Day, and so the 7th or the 8th would be an executive session for the selection of finalists. The 14th and the 15th, we would do interviews of candidates. And on the 22nd, which is our final regular board meeting of the month, we would name the superintendent. So pardon me, in between, we would need a executive session. Well, no, sorry. After the interview, I guess we would discuss at regular board meeting. Or do we discuss internally? That's a question for Mr. Leonard. Do we discuss that internally and come back to the dais, or do we, how would that work?
So
After the interviews.
Yeah, if you want to discuss, so the ultimate action is made in open session, right? I mean, in order to make the actual decision, but there are conversations that can happen in executive session, which is consistent what we've done in previous searches. Is you can talk about the candidates, their qualifications, right? That is squarely within one of the exceptions or exemptions for executive session, right? But ultimately the decision, right, the vote taken, the extension of the contract, the decision is made in open session. But you can talk about qualifications, review applicants, talk about their answers in your interviews, pluses and minuses, and all that can be done in executive session.
So I think what we did do is interview candidates 23rd and 24th. Well, we interviewed candidates 2 dates, and then I think we had the executive session to have a discussion.
Point of order, President Daniels. We have a motion on the floor, and I realize there's the importance of this timeline. Are we adding that to the motion? Are we discussing that per the motion, or is that a separate item? I'm not sure. When we have a motion on the floor, do we not have to talk only about that motion that's on the floor? Now we're talking about additions to that motion. Am I correct?
Well, we're talking about the posting, and so you're right. Director McAndazalem we're discussing a timeline of the posting in particular, with subsequent things after that. But I think we're in order. I don't think we're out of order. The motion is still the job posting.
The job posting is going to have the dates, because right now it says to be determined. It doesn't have any dates there. So we have to discuss that.
So thinking about the timeline is relevant to the job posting. And so my thought was, I think that probably works. I am a little bit concerned about the holiday weekend and possible availability, but I think that if we schedule it for I would actually probably prefer to schedule it for the 8th, the initial, because I don't know that people would be available or have enough time in between that holiday time. I'm just trying to give a little bit of cushion for folks who may have plans, and we're losing that Monday to review the applications and such at that time.
Again, point of order, President Daniels. If there's a motion on the floor, can we correct that motion or amend that motion?
We're not changing the motion, Director Hamada. All we're doing is discussing all of these things are relevant to the timeline of the job posting. That's what that's what the motion is.
I totally understand that, but you have a motion that I put on the floor. It did not include dates. Do we need to, in actuality, change or amend that motion? And I can I can accept a friendly.
No, okay. I don't think so. Mr. Leonard, do we need to do that?
Well, certainly your discussion is not limited. If as a result of the discussion, you want to amend the motion, you certainly can. You can vote on the motion, or you can bring an amendment that needs to be voted on. Either way, we've talked about that before. But your discussion right now is appropriate. You can explore whether or not you need to amend a motion or whether or not it needs to be changed. But that's as a result of your discussion. So that's appropriate to have that discussion.
Thank you.
So I guess I'm really confused now. So I thought that that's what the motion was. So we would just finalize this job posting, and then at the end, when we vote, that the posting, whatever we decided, the vote would mean we decided, we agreed on the dates, we agreed if there were any changes to make to we wanted made to the posting.
Correct.
That's what I thought the motion would cover.
Correct. You're correct.
Okay.
So your suggestion is 2 weeks.
2 weeks, it would be, the position would close in 2 weeks, yes. But that would bring it down to end of the month, or the first of the month, 1st of September. And then what I'm thinking is, only because we're constricted by this 22nd regular board meeting date, that's why it's a little bit.
No, that's that makes sense. But as far as the actual term for the job posting, which is what it would be, your suggestion is 2 weeks.
You're suggesting the position close on 9/1, and that we have executive sessions 9/7 or 9/8, and then have candidate interviews the 14th and 15th, and then make a final decision on the 22nd. That's what I wrote down. Yes?
That's correct.
So we have a regularly scheduled board meeting on the 8th. Would that be an additional executive session? Would we want to do that on the 7th, or would we have an additional executive session on the 8th? Or would it be?
So the 7th and the 8th, it's a regular board meeting, but we would have, typically we would have a work session prior, right? So that would be, or we could have an extended executive session. I can see Dr. Harmon. I'm probably not happy because I know that the staff has a lot of presentations. They probably don't want us to take up that particular time. I don't know. But we could do it on the 7th, depending on how many people we have. And that's the big question mark. How many people are, and we're doing 2 by 2. So, right.
Well, this is for the executive for the first, I think, isn't the early September would be to review the applications, and then the next week would be the interviews. So,
pardon me. Yes, 7th or the 8th would be the selection of the finalists.
Yes. So to President Daniel's point, could we amend that to be selection of have an executive session on the 9th? That's a Thursday.
Well, we could have an executive session on the 8th, since we already have a meeting. We can have an executive session on the 8th.
It just might be after the meeting.
Short. Yeah.
Well, it might not necessarily be that long. It just depends on, I think if we scheduled it, we should be okay. I think we might not have, typically we have executive sessions prior to each meeting anyway, and we don't often have a lot of updates. So we could just schedule an hour executive session before the meeting.
Even if if it's possible, we started even a little early that night, like a half hour early.
Depends
if
on
that
work
would
schedule.
work.
It's always hard to get it done at
I
5.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
The problem is we have to read through this, and it depends how many people are going to apply. If we have 10, are we going to be able to decide within an hour? I feel like we need a dedicated time for that.
Why don't we schedule 2 days? Yeah, we could schedule one for Wednesday, and then if we need to, we could tentatively schedule another one for Thursday. So that way, if we don't need it, we could always cancel it.
Yeah, I put down 7th or the 8th, but 8th or the 9th is fine too. Okay.
I just am concerned about the 7th because it is the day after the holiday and people coming back to work, and I just think that that's always a tough time.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable. Decisions with very little time. I like my time. I think everybody likes, it's better to have more time on decisions. So, but I understand exactly what you're saying about the 7th and want to be respectful. So if we schedule the executive session, the 8th and then the 9th, and then knowing that we could cancel it if we didn't need it. So to recap what I have, position closes 9/1. Since I take notes, position closes 9/1. Selection of finalists, looking at the applications, would be the 8th and the 9th, potentially canceling the 9th if we got it all done on the 8th. And then candidate interviews 14th, 15th, final selection on the 22nd of September.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then to the posting itself, I just had one comment. And it's all over. It's also, I think, in the when we get to the position is and now I can't find it because there's so many pages. It is something about serves as the board's professional advisor. We have a professional organization, which is WASDA, and I'm uncomfortable with that line there because, you know, the board and there's checks and balances in the structure, and that line serves as the board's professional advisor. That doesn't seem consistent with providing those checks and balances. You know, we have WASTA to be our professional advisors. We pay them a lot of money, and the governance structure in the state of Washington is such. So I would propose that we strike that line.
Mr. Leonard, is there thoughts about that?
No thoughts about the substance of the request. I mean, certainly that's up to the board's discretion as to whether or not you want to take the word advisor to be literal or not. I mean, certainly in my experience, that's not inconsistent with what you would expect the superintendent to do. They advise, they consult with the board. It's not a word that certainly that gives me any sort of discomfort, but ultimately as a board, you have the discretion to craft it however you want.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, only that many board members might not necessarily be intimately experienced with the educational. So it's just really letting us know, I think, advising what's going on and things like that. So I don't have a problem with it either. I see it in that way. But other thoughts?
I think advisement is a loose term, and so it's not mandate. So I'm okay with it.
I had a note on that too. I understand that the superintendent, or the interim in this case, is going to serve as an advisor. I was confused by the word professional advisor. I didn't understand professional advisor. Like, I understand advisor, but I didn't understand what professional meant in the context of a superintendent advising a school board.
Well, I wonder again, like I said, many school board members don't have experience in the educational system or the educational profession. So that's what I think about. I think of when it comes to all things education, for those that may not know, I think that's what I would take it to mean. But I don't know.
To me, it's like I said, we have WASDA and they're the professional advisor to the board, in my opinion. So I see it was on the 2014, you know, when it was on the job posting for the interim position from 2014 as well. But it would be my proposal to strike it.
Yeah, I don't think there were any changes made to this from 2014.
There were a few, yeah.
The timelines were taken out.
Yeah, and there was some more addition to the opening paragraph, which I think is fine. It just explains the district, and I mean, the one from 2014 was fine. That would be the only thing from the one from 2014 that I would question too, is that, because again, I think it's important to maintain those checks and balances in that division, and you know, it just.
Well, I think I have a different take on that. Vice President Bettinger is just like Mr. Curtis Leonard advises the board. It isn't a mandate. It's just another tool. It doesn't mean he's the only advisor. So I don't have a problem with it.
Do we need to take a vote on this, or?
We're going to do right now. If everyone's done discussing, so.
Oh, only because I've got something else. I mean, do we need to go bullet by bullet, or I just have one other thing?
With regards to this discussion?
With regards to the job posting,
Description.
yes.
Oh, well, if this would be the time to talk about it then, if you have something else, yeah.
Yeah. So I know we talked about emergency preparedness in terms of pandemic, but it's not listed here. And do we want to elaborate on this? Directs the evaluation of emergency preparedness, crisis management plans. Do we want to bring up? Because that is going to be a big part of what our interim superintendent is going to be doing. So nothing's changed here. It just talks about crisis management plans.
Well, I think the pandemic would fall under crisis management plan, so I don't know if it specifically needs to be called out.
So last week, that was the specific reason we didn't move to post the job posting the next day. So that to add that language about COVID, and it wasn't added. So, you know, again, another week has gone by, and that was the specific reason. So I would support what Director Venkatachalam is saying. If that was the exact reason we didn't move to post the job, you know, on the 12th of August, then we should add that to this.
Well, I wonder if it was because I don't know that we had we seen the job description at that time. I think we just said we wanted it to be. Oh, you had saw it. Okay, I hadn't.
It was posted.
So I thought we talked about we wanted it to be there. But yeah, I see what you're saying. So
it was available to us before the meeting.
Okay.
So I think we can put in pandemic as, do we want to put anything specific? Because I'm fine with just putting in pandemic with examples, fire, weather, security, etc.
Yeah. Adding the words COVID-19 before the word fire. So it would be directs the evaluation of emergency preparedness / crisis management plans, e.g. COVID-19, fire, weather, security, etc. Administers threat reporting and assessment and response procedures, responds to emergencies as needed.
I guess I feel like we should just put pandemic because there are so many things coming up.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yeah, just add the word.
We didn't have.
Yep.
Go ahead. Somebody was going to speak. Yeah.
Can you just add to the existing 2.01? Can you add that without a separate motion to add it? A whole different motion?
I think we're going to have to. Can we approve it, Mr. Leonard, with the addition of that language? I think we can.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
With amendment. Yeah. As mentioned. Yeah.
Okay.
So that bullet point would read, e.g. pandemic, fire, pandemic, fire, weather, security, etc. That's what you're proposing?
Yes.
That sounds good.
I'm in favor of that.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay, so then do we need Director Hamada to amend her motion?
Let's just do two separate motions.
Okay.
Why don't you amend, or why don't you just vote it on as is and then vote on the amendment separately to make those additions?
Okay.
So two separate motions.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so then all those in favor of approving agenda item 2.01, the interim superintendent job posting long-term as presented, please indicate by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed, please indicate by raising your right hand and saying no.
No.
Okay, I'm confused. I'm
Any
totally
abstentions?
Wow.
We're gonna do an amended motion.
Well, yeah,
We're gonna do an amended motion.
next.
In Robert's rules, don't we vote
Okay.
on the amendment and then we vote on the main motion after the changes
We were
are
just doing
voted on?
that. We were just doing that. We were just doing the original motion, and then either that passes or fails, and then we go to, if it doesn't pass, then it goes to the amended motion for a vote.
That's the way that I know to do it. So
Yep,
Okay.
it's Robert's rules.
That's not how Robert's rules works necessarily. You have a motion and then you make an amendment. Once the amendment passes, it becomes the main motion. Then you
But he
vote on that
just-
main motion.
So no, Curtis just advised us to vote on the motion that was on the floor and then vote on the amendment.
That's Roberts.
I mean, I'll go with that, but that's not Roberts. I mean,
Director
that's fine.
Bento, I will say, being a student of Roberts, there's more than one way to do it. And I appreciate the fact that doing an amendment and voting on it is appropriate and is an appropriate way to do it. Historically, this board has done it a different way. Both are acceptable under Roberts rules. I've read both versions of how to do it. Both require 2 votes. And so I'm open to, discussing this offline if we want to talk more about potentially Robert's rules. But at this point, the motion's been made. I'll have to take President Daniels and turn it over to you because I did not.
It was 3. It was 2 approving and 3 not. So it did not pass. The motions failed. So now.
So I could say, I move to approve the job posting with the addition of the word pandemic and with the dates 9/1, the position closes, the position posts tomorrow, 9/18/21, position, I'm sorry, August 18, 8/18/21, position posts 8/18/21, position closes 9/1/21, selection of finalists 9/8 and 9/9.
Go there. This
Yeah,
is
I
just
mean-
the
No.
Right, do we
It's
have to
just the
make,
posting.
right, that's the posting, but we have to add those words to the posting because it says TBD.
No,
That's what we're
we just
voting.
have to add when the posting opens and closes. We don't add what we do after that.
But
It
it's
says
on,
TBD
it's
right
on the
now.
paper. It says you can't see it, but it's on the paper where it
Okay.
says TBD. So all those things have to be added. Those have to be.
All
on
of
the
those
paper.
dates have to be added in there? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, my
So-
apologies. I'm sorry.
Okay. So my motion on the floor is to accept the job posting with the amendment of adding the word pandemic to the bullet point that's to the bullet point that we discussed. And
Yes.
application posting opens 8/18/21, position closes 9/1/21, selection of finalists 9/8 and 9/20/21, interview candidates 9/14 and 15/2021, so final selection September 22 2021.
I
Is
second.
there a second? Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion?
I think it's a terrific motion.
I took notes.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving agenda item 2.01 as amended by Vice President Bettinger's description, please indicate by raising your right hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed indicate by raising your right hand and saying no. Any abstention?
We're going to abstain.
The motion carries. On to agenda item 2.02, the interim superintendent job description. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve 2.02 interim superintendent job description, long-term.
A
Is there a
second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I was just comparing it to because it looks like this was mostly pulled from the superintendent. I'm just searching for clarity on, probably from Miss Dr. Behringer. So this was basically pulled from the superintendent's job description that was from November, like, what's the date of that? That was like from November 2000.
Vice President Benninger, yes, that was correct. So we used the previous superintendent posting to use, or for our job description. So our previous superintendent job description we used as the draft.
Interim. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, but there's a good chunk of new information because I compared the two.
There are some
So-
pieces from the superintendent's job description that we put in the interim job description.
Right. And so to the point, so if we're going to be consistent with the job posting, the only thing really we would do is add the word pandemic to a bullet point in here. Honestly. Or just leave it as is and
Yeah, Vice President Benninger, our job postings are basically a cookie cutter of our job descriptions.
okay.
So
Okay. Yeah, because I had the same concern about the serves as the board's professional advisor. So, and I didn't see anywhere in here that some of the things didn't quite, I didn't see that it says that they're the secretary of the board, but I think most superintendents are, and that's in our policy. So I think that's covered by our policy. So it's pretty boilerplate. I would just,
Sorry,
For
go ahead.
yeah. For future, I just want to say for future, I would, when we're looking for our new superintendent, not an interim, just to keep in the back of our minds that the superintendent job description, that could be a basis for a community conversation when we're having conversations with our constituents, both, in the community and in this district, because that this be a topic of discussion, because I think the job description drives, what you want from that employee. And, with a compressed timeline, I'm okay accepting this as is for an interim, but long-term, I'm going to want us all to remember that this is going to be something that would be wise, I think, to be the basis of discussion with community.
I'm not in disagreement with that. I noticed though, in the actual description, it says that an earned doctorate in educational administration or other area related and 10 years experience as a senior level school administrator under education experience. And then in the posting, it says those are all preferred. Doctoral degree is preferred.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we want to handle that?
Well, it does have allowable substitutions because,
Yeah.
I mean, this is essentially the job description that was used hiring the last superintendent. And so substitutions were made, obviously, I think, so it's 10 years experience as a senior level school administrator. That's a school level administrator. Correct me if I'm wrong. That could be a principal as well, correct?
that is correct.
Yes.
But the board could decide to, waive that. Because there are allowable substitutions, qualifying management experience as determined by the board of directors may substitute for either the doctorate degree or school administrative experience.
But it says preferred in both of them. So I'm not sure what
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
up on top it does say preferred, but then
Yeah,
under
so I think
education
it's
and
okay.
experience, that's minimum
Yeah.
qualifications.
Mhm.
Yeah, so but it does say preferred, so
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the difference is.
President Daniels, that could be that it could be just as we were cutting and pasting and moving some things around, we got from minimum qualifications or required and preferred. We might have cut one of those pieces off and ended up with preferred in two sections instead of having a required section or a recommended section and a preferred section. I don't know. I'm not looking at the document right now, but
Yeah,
it's possible. We can definitely review that.
It says in minimum qualifications, it says doctoral degree preferred in both of those, in the same, on the job description and on the posting.
Posting.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's both under minimum qualifications.
Mhm.
So if that's something you'd like to move or remove as far as
I
a
think
minimum qualification, or again, as Vice President Benninger stated, I mean, there is some leeway with the board as well.
Well, I think
yeah,
it says
I guess I don't follow that section of education and experience. If we're saying minimum, then why are we saying under that section that an earned doctorate in educational administration and experience equivalent that would provide the applicant with the desired knowledge, skills, and ability required to perform the work? It's still under minimum qualifications. So I'm a little confused on that, but I'm okay with if you're comfortable with that.
It's kind of confusing, but it looks like a new section to me. Like education, I just think it's
under the
right. It
it's
under the
or.
bold of minimum.
Right, but it also says or any equivalent combination of education experience and training. So I guess it's an or, it's not, yeah, I don't see it as I don't understand.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but
actually,
so at least with I'm talking, Vice President.
Sorry.
At least in the business world, a job posting is kind of a rough draft of what you're looking for, who's ever making that decision. And it doesn't mean you're locked into every point, that it has to be every I and T crossed. Am I correct? I mean, I don't think we're locked into every little detail of this. It's going to be interviewing them, seeing what they're at and what they've got to offer is what we want to get in the door. I'm not sure. I don't think we have to have it everything exact. Am I correct in that?
I think the or part there, yeah.
I think it's weird. It's under that sentence.
I think it's a formatting issue. I think it's just formatting because it actually is. It spans 2 pages, and it's the minimum qualifications actually falls under the heading of qualifications. And then I think education and experience, allowable substitutions, licensing, and certification are actually, they're just not bolded like the other sections. So I think it's just a formatting issue.
Okay.
So it looks like it, I see exactly what you're saying, but if I look at the previous page, the prior page, the minimum qualifications is falling under the heading of qualifications. So I think, and there's no other similar formatting in the document. So I think it's a formatting issue potentially.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the old, the 2000 November 2000 document, and it looks similar. Yeah, the minimum qualifications on the 2000 document, there aren't minimum qualifications. That was added to this new document. So I think that's what it is too. So on the document that it was pulled from, it just says qualifications, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then there's some subheadings. Education and experience falls under allowable substitutions, licensing, and certification. So it might just be a formatting thing.
Vice President Bettinger, you're exactly right. The education experience are not part of the minimum qualifications. They're their own headings, but they obviously are not standing out bold, and so therefore they might have been lumped into that category. So that's something we can make an adjustment on easily in HR to make sure that's more clear.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any additional discussion?
So just for clarity, if we approve this, we're approving it as written without the changes or just the new formatting?
It would just be bolding. It looks like it would just be bolding the same language that's already there. So it's not
correct.
changing the language. It's not changing anything. Okay. All those in favor of approving agenda item 2.02, the interim superintendent job description long-term, please indicate by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, indicate by raising your right hand. You were muted, Director Beno. I saw you raise your hand, but you have to speak so they can hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed indicate by raising your right hand and saying no. Are there any abstentions?
It was frozen, so.
So what were you voting?
Voting
What is your vote?
Voting as amended. I was voting
You're
yes
voting-
as amended.
Okay, so you were with the aye.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So then
my connection is unstable.
Oh, got it. Okay. So we have 5 then that voted yes, correct? Okay. And were there any that votes no, please indicate by raising your right hand. And then no abstentions. All right, the motion carries. We're on to our consent agenda, which is the personnel report. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items 3.01, personnel report, 3.02, supplemental report.
I second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving consent agenda items 3.01, the personnel report, and 3.02, the supplemental personnel report, please indicate by raising your right hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
All those opposed indicate by raising your right hand and saying no. Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. All right, that concludes our special meeting for this evening. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are now adjourned.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.